Although King George III isn't well known in American history, maybe he should be. If it weren't for his and Parliament's measures to make a profit from the British colonies in America following the French and Indian War, there's a possibility that the United States would have never been established or recognized as an independent country. Ranging from his early days as a king to his death as an insane, blind, and deaf man, this is the history of King George III's reign and the association between it and the United States. George III became King of Great Britain and Ireland in 1760 following his grandfather George II's death. In his accession speech to Parliament, the 22-year-old monarch played down his Hanoverian connections. "Born and educated in this country," he said, "I glory in the name of Britain." A year after his coronation, George was married to Charlotte, who was the daughter of a German duke. In 1764, Prime Minister George Grenville introduced the Stamp Act as a way of raising revenue in the British colonies. Parliament repealed these acts 2 years later, but the colonies were already moving towards independence. In 1773, Lord North, the Prime Minister, passed the tea tax. The Americans complained of taxation without representation, thus the Boston Tea Party was staged. The American Revolution began on April 19, 1775, with the battles of Lexington and Concord. The next year, the Declaration of Independence laid out the Americans' case for freedom, portraying George III as an inflexible tyrant who had misused his right to govern the colonies. In reality, though, the situation was far more complex. Parliamentary ministers, not the Crown, were responsible for the American policies. Although it is commonly known that whoever is presiding over the country in any time of conflict often gets the blame. The king was reluctant to come to terms with his army's defeat at Yorktown in 1781. He decided to give in to Parliament's peace offerings. The Treaty of Paris of 1783 recognized the United States as a sovereign nation and ceded the present-day land of Florida to Spain. Subsequent to the birth of the United States, George suffered 2 major bouts of insanity in 1778 and 1804, and he recovered. But in 1810 he slipped into the illness that would result in his death. A year later, his son, George IV, became Prince Regent. George III died deaf, blind, and mad on January 29, 1820. His illness may have been caused by porphyria, an inherited metabolic disorder, though a 2005 analysis of hair samples suggested arsenic poisoning as a possible cause.